And hello again, everyone. Welcome to yet another edition of Frazier Deeter's Business Beat. I'm John Ray alongside Roger Lesby. Roger.
Hey, John, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you doing this day?
Doing fine. It's September 17th, and we're past our due date, so that's a great thing.
That's right. You look bright and chipper this morning.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, after that, one more big one, I guess, in October, and then you can coast through the rest of the year, maybe?
Yeah, then we can say 2018 is done.
There you go. Sounds like a plan. So, Roger, you brought two great guests for us today, and I'd like to introduce Blair Cunningham, and Blair is a partner with SignatureFD, and then Elizabeth Burdette, and Elizabeth is also with SignatureFD. Blair, tell us a little bit about SignatureFD. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having us here. It's great to be here. SignatureFD is a financial design and advisory firm that provides integrated wealth management services to individuals, couples, families. We are affiliated with Frazier Deeter. We were launched out of Frazier Deeter about 20 years ago. Three young CPAs who saw the career track of a CPA firm and said, we want to do something different. And they created a wealth management firm, put together a business plan. And that firm was 20 years ago. And since that time, we've become one of the largest independent firms, not only in Atlanta, but in the country. And so it's been a great ride. Frazier Deeter has been a great partner with us. And that's kind of where we've got started.
Wow, great story. Now, talk a little bit about maybe the purposes behind that independence. You're still affiliated, but you still have a link. And there's some good reasons for that, right?
Yeah, as an independent firm, some firms, wealth management firms or CPA firms, they are one together. Frazier Deeter and SignatureFD are sister companies. We have a strong affiliation of referrals back and forth, but we felt like 20 years ago it was important for them to be two separate cultures. And so we have our own culture, we have our own values, but they work really well together with Frazier Deeter.
So lots of wealth management firms out there.
Yes.
I don't need to tell you that because you see that every day. Talk a little bit about why SignatureFD is different.
Yeah, I think when you think about wealth management firms, that means a lot of different things to different people, but they think it's somebody who's managing your money, doing their estate planning, selling insurance. I think what differentiates SignatureFD is probably three things. The first would be just even of how we define wealth. When you think of wealth, you think of money. And we think of wealth as a lot more than your money. We think of it as your skills, your talents, your relationships, the influence that you have. So I think first and foremost, when you think about a wealth management firm, we're thinking of wealth much more than a client's portfolio. I think the second thing that really differentiates us from other wealth management firms is we believe that clients want to do something different they want to do something more with their wealth. They want to do something that's worthwhile. And they want to make an impact with that wealth. And again, with that broad definition of wealth, more than your money. And so one of the questions that we ask our clients, and we'll talk about maybe a little bit today, is we ask them kind of, what's your net worthwhile? And they kind of look at you, and we'll talk about that, kind of what that means to us. But that's kind of where we begin the relationship. It's not just about, what do you want to accumulate? It's, again, what do you want to do that's worthwhile with your wealth? And then I think the third thing that differentiates us from other firms is that because we have grown in size over the years, we have been able to specialize. We have been able to go deep in certain areas. We have different practice areas that focus on executives, on women, on athletes, on entrepreneurs, on attorneys. And so we've been able to go different. It's not only creating kind of a specialization in each of those areas, but our goal also with these, we call them initiatives. So the Signature Executive Initiative, it's also creating a community around those. We want our executives to know one another. And we're trying to create in that community the opportunity for our clients to get together and to learn from one another as well.
Wow, there's a lot there. And I'm really fascinated by the concept of net worthwhile, because that sounds like something that's a clear differentiator. A lot of firms are pretty interested in the size of the portfolios and that kind of thing, as opposed to drilling down into where is all this going,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that's a little unique is at least at one point in time, about 95% of our clients were entrepreneurs. They were first generations. They're the ones that created the wealth.
Yes.
And so I think that that's been a little bit of a different niche and a little bit of a different planning angle for us. And so some of the other things that we'll talk about later today are reasons for that is because a lot of this is first generational wealth. It's not necessarily, corporate money. It's not corporate retirement plans. It's not trust fund babies. It's generally people that have created the wealth. And that's always a different mindset.
Sure. And folks are looking, as you say, Blair, folks are looking for a more meaning and purpose maybe than in previous generations, although it's hard for me to say that really necessarily because I wasn't there as much as my son might think I was. But today I think clearly there's a trend toward that across generations. Is it no matter where you are in your wealth building cycle, you're looking for purpose in that.
Correct. And I think it's things that we all know about, but I think as a wealth management firm, we are making that a core part of our relationship with our clients. We don't just kind of put it up there on the wall. We are communicating to our clients again that when we say what's your net worthwhile, we're communicating the values of we don't believe your net worth is equal to your self-worth. I mean, we're going kind of deep on some kind of maybe the soft side of money, but we believe honestly those are some of the conversations that advisors need to have with their clients. And too often we get really focused on, let's just look at the portfolio. Let's just look at that. The reality is we have to do all of that, and we have to do that with excellence. We have to manage the money. We have to, perform well. We have to give good advice. So we're not negating any of that. That's, almost assumed. We're trying to take it a deeper level is we're doing that with excellence, but we also want to go deeper with you because we know ultimately that's what's going to make, again, that you're going to be fulfilled. You're going to be more satisfied. And again, you're going to be happier and content.
Sure. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah. And I think another thing that sets the firm apart is a lot of wealth management firms really focus on kind of a scarcity mindset. They're helping their clients kind of stockpile their financial wealth for the future and delaying any kind of use or enjoyment or fulfillment through that. And I think the way our advisors approach that through this net worthwhile lens is we want you to live your very best life with that wealth today and not just tomorrow. So whatever that means for your family or your friends or your community or your neighborhood, how can we help you to do both things? How can we help you be prepared for the future, but also live your life and put your money where your heart is what we like to say. So how can we partner with you? If one of your goals is to run a marathon, or one of your goals is to build a house for your grandchildren. I mean, whatever that goal is, we want to be your partner, not just on expanding your portfolio, your investments. So really kind of digging in deeper with clients and their families on, like Blair said, kind of the quote unquote softer elements of financial planning. But we want to be kind of that partner and that coach for our clients on achieving a wide array of goals in their life, not just financial, and today, not just tomorrow.
Well, and we have to call this out, right? So there's a self-interest that wealth management firms have in hoarding all the assets, right? As opposed to giving this advice to say, hey, you've got the money to go buy that RV that you want to travel across the country in, or whatever the dream is, right? And so what you're talking about is establishing great long-term relationships first, as opposed to your own self-interest in the short run.
Exactly. And I think if we are honest with ourselves about being great partners and great stewards for those clients, that means partnering them on whatever their goals are, right? And being obviously wise counsel to them as advisors and providing advice and doing everything that Blair mentioned of providing excellent service in terms of management and investment of those funds, but being more, less self-seeking and more of a partner. And more kind of collaborative with them and taking a much more creative approach to wealth management and partnering with those families.
We're speaking with Blair Cunningham and Elizabeth Burdette, and they are with SignatureFD. So I know that, Blair, back to your point about net worthwhile and having some deep conversations with folks. I think when someone has come through a long career, maybe been in a business a long time, they have a similar problem in that they've, as you say, wrapped up their identity in that, and maybe they haven't thought of deeply where they want to go with retirement or after they've sold their business or whatever. How do you help with that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And the question I would even pose back to that is when somebody is looking to retire, very often they're kind of running to the finish line and they don't know what's past the finish line. They haven't thought about what they're doing next. And the question I pose back to them is, don't just retire from what you're doing as an executive or as a business owner. What are you retiring to? And again, that's not a decision that you make the day that you walk out the door, you sell the business. It has to be something you've thought about, years ahead of time. So often, and this is kind of where in the accounting world, Roger's helping clients help prepare that business to be sold. And then they sell it, but they're not prepared for what comes next. And so you really have to be going down two different tracks there. You have to be preparing the business for sale. That's incredibly important. There are even aspects of preparing the business for sale that's personally, financially. How does that affect you? But then how do you prepare for what I'm going to be doing next? And that's probably even the most important. I've had several clients. I had a client who recently retired at age 70. He finally retired. And kind of what's next? He said, I'll decide that later. Unfortunately, he got diagnosed with Alzheimer's shortly before, right around that retirement date. And so, he still has lots of years, ahead of him. But again, I think thinking ahead of time, kind of life is a little different for him. I'm meeting with a new client right now. He's in his early 60s, and he's in a career change. He's thinking what's next, and he probably has enough. I mean, and we're going to sit down and help answer that question. That's one of the things I think we do very well is helping people decide. I mean, kind of like, I understand, I know how to plan with my wealth now, but that gives them the freedom to then be able to decide what's next, at least to say, oh, I don't have to work. I'm not dependent upon that income. That doesn't mean you spend the rest of your life on a golf course or tennis court or, traveling around the world. But again, we want to have those conversations of what's next.
Yeah, they may think they're going to spend the rest of their life on a golf course, but ultimately, as Blair said, they need something to retire to, especially males. I think they need that. They don't want to have buyer's remorse. They want to be able to have that identity, and then so many of us are so used to being on a schedule and working. So we're so busy. That needs to be part of that chapter 2.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Roger, let me bring you in on this because there's got to be, for great planning, there's got to be some collaboration here in terms of as you're working with a business owner on their business and helping advise them to maybe an eventual sale or cash out or however that's going to work, some collaboration in terms of helping them plan personally with the folks here at SignatureFD.
Yeah, well, these guys, first of all, are very, very bright. They're very smart. We've got almost every credential at SignatureFD. Elizabeth's an attorney. Blair's got CPA and other credentials after his name, as do I. So we're all used to that. We can all work together on the planning. SignatureFD does way more planning than most firms, and I think that's just because it's a strength, and this is where our background is. But it's comprehensive planning. And so, John, as you might expect, I am a client of SignatureFD, and so that's been good. And one of the areas, even though I'm a tax partner and I'm supposed to know everything, and everything's supposed to be in perfect order,
right?
And a lot of it is,
yeah.
But I've told Blair to challenge me in certain areas, challenge me on my charitable giving, challenge me on what I want to do with my life insurance, with what I want to do with maybe chapter 2 when I retire from Frazier and Deeter. Challenge me on my family relations and how I can bring my children and grandchildren into the planning. Look at some of the things on the personal property insurance side, which I might not be as great at, but we have some wonderfully talented people within SignatureFD that can look at that. And why do we have that? Because all that is liability, and what they're trying to do is make sure that from a client perspective, all of our liabilities are protected and they're buttoned down and we know what they are, because we don't want to have that exposure within our overall wealth plan. And so I think all those things are very, very important.
Sure. There's no more compelling testimonial than you're eating your own cooking, shall we say. So that's great stuff. I'm curious about the different verticals that you work with in terms of, or maybe types of clients that you work with, because you've got some specific niches that you specialize in too.
Yeah, and we're not just limited to those. I think those are where we've had, I guess, kind of a critical mass in terms of number of clients, where we've say, hey, we can kind of specialize that. But it's also based upon the advisors. We've had advisors who really had an interest in working with executives, working with entrepreneurs, so working with attorneys, working with women. So each one of these that we've had, in large part, has been driven by the advisor, which has then gone hand in hand with the clients that they've worked with. That then leads to referrals from those. So it really has led to I think a great strategy. It's really one of our growth strategies as a firm, is to grow geographically, but also to grow within each one of those initiatives.
And then, Blair, the initiative that you and Elizabeth are heading up for SignatureFD is SignatureFD Generosity.
Yeah, I mean, Signature Generosity was, again, something that I've, probably 3-4 years ago, when thinking about what initiative would I like to lead as a leader in the firm, I was asked that question, what would you like to lead? And, while I worked with executives, I've worked with retirees, the area that I probably have been most passionate about in my 30-year career is around generosity. How do we help our clients, again, make an impact with their wealth? How do we help them do something more? And so that was, it was kind of a unique initiative, but it was one that I kind of thought, and it doesn't relate to any one specific group or a segment of our clients. In fact, from my perspective, Signature Generosity applies firm-wide. It's a firm-wide initiative that we want every one of our clients to participate in. And we talk about this in the picture of, we believe every client is on this journey of generosity. And they may be just beginning, they may be far along in that. And that doesn't matter. All we want is people to be on the journey, and we want to help them take that next step.
Yeah, and I think I'm relatively new. I joined the firm in April. And as Roger mentioned, I have a background as an attorney and as in fundraising, but I started my career, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, but a long time ago, in philanthropy, in a private foundation. That's really where my heart is. And so I feel like ever since then, I've kind of been journeying back to that. So Signature Generosity to me is this incredibly unique opportunity to provide a value and a resource to our clients that you just don't see really at any other wealth management firms, especially not our size. And our mission is really to provide the resources and the guidance to help clients on that journey of generosity. And what we like to say is that everyone has something to give. It doesn't matter if you're 28 and you have, you're really at the very beginning of your career and you say, I don't have any kind of money to give. Well, you have a network, you've got expertise, you've got advice, you've got time. And those are all resources that are in high demand of your community. And so how can we inspire you to think more broadly about generosity that's not just your financial assets? And then it could be somebody who is, looking at retirement who does have significant assets to give. And we can also partner with them on the more technical side of, do you have a liquidity event? Do you want to set up a foundation? What does that look like on a more technical side? So what we're building in Signature Generosity is this kind of the soft side of inspiring families to have those conversations of how to build in generosity to their lives in the way that fits them, that's personalized. And then the more technical of how can we, design some giving vehicles for you that have tax advantages, and that benefit, not only the community, but your family. And I think for me, and I know Blair shares in this too, we feel like the more personalized and strategic and thoughtful your giving is, the more meaningful it is for both the donor, the giver, and for the recipient. So what we're trying to get people away from is this mindset of kind of checkbook, quote unquote, philanthropy where, oh, I write a check here, I write a check here, I write a check here. You don't really have a focus or a purpose. So one of our goals is that every client eventually would have what we call a generosity blueprint. So they have a plan for their giving, just like they have a plan for their investments, just like they have a plan for their retirement or their business or their taxes or anything else that we're working with them on. We want them to have a strategy for their giving as well, so that they are aligning what they're passionate about, they're aligning their resources, and they're aligning their time to kind of create this perfect alignment to get the very, very most out of their giving. I like to tell this story that about Bill Gates, who we now, I think we can probably all agree is one of the greatest philanthropists probably of our current time. But when he first started and decided he wanted to give back, he went to Africa with I don't know the details, but a lot of computers. This is early days of computers, and he was going to give all these computers to this village in Africa. Had the best intentions in the entire world and certainly had the resources. Got there and realized that the village did not have power, did not have electricity. So I like to tell clients that because his intentions were there, his resources were there, his heart was there. He didn't have a plan. And he was interviewed about that, and he said, that was kind of the beginning point of my time as a philanthropist, because I realized you need to have a plan and a strategy to have the impact that you want. So, not everybody can be Bill Gates, but everyone can make a difference and everybody has something to give.
And I think for most wealth management firms, when you talk about it, and they will talk about, a person's giving, but what that usually means is you have some appreciated stock and let's go give that stock away either directly to a charity or to a donor advised fund that's a vehicle. It's very tax motivated. It is very technique driven, but it never gets to the heart. And there's been research that's shown that most individuals, and especially high net worth individuals, they want their advisor to talk about giving, generosity, but they don't want to just know the tax strategies. They don't want to just know the how to do it. They want you, the advisor, to understand the why behind what they're trying to do. And from my experience, a lot of times the clients are looking for help in understanding the why. They want to be generous. Again, it goes back to this whole net worthwhile. They want to do something worthwhile with their wealth. And when it comes to their giving or their generosity, a lot of times they get a little overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. And so our job is not to tell them you ought to be giving to this organization or that organization. Our job is really how do we help you determine, again, what the passions are and really what's your heartbeat, what breaks your heart and that you want to be involved in. I think one of, again, the reasons why we think it's important to have a generosity blueprint, having a plan for your generosity, is not only that will allow you to be more generous, but it also gives you freedom. Is that when you have a plan, when you think about it, all of us have hearts that want to give. And so we tend to respond to everything that comes at us. And if we don't have a plan, we're just responding as opposed to being able to say, I love what you guys are doing, but that's not where my heart is right now. I'm invested over here. It essentially gives them the freedom to say no with no guilt. And that's an unusual concept to say, well, you kind of feel like you're saying no to somebody asking you for money. Yes, because you've made a plan and you're focused on these 2 or 3 or maybe 4. I see a lot of people, and I can be guilty of this as well, to have 10, 15, 20 different things I'm giving to. They're all great. But again, I can't have a passion for 20 different things. And as Elizabeth was saying, when you can align your passions and your resources, and resources being not just your money, but again, it goes back to our definition of wealth, but your passions, your resources, and then when you can make that personal connection, that's when it becomes the most impactful gift, not just for the recipient of the gift. It becomes impactful to me. And it sounds a little self-serving or selfish that, I want to have an impact with my wealth on myself, but inevitably you want that because that's going to allow you to continue to be invested in those organizations or those causes. So
But we do have a number of clients that have set up family foundations, a tremendous thing, and they can get children and grandchildren involved, and so that it becomes a family thing. The family foundations actually sit down and usually will write a mission statement so they know exactly what the family is for and what the family wants to support. And then they sort of run that as a board, and so that can be very, very exciting. But the donor advised funds are another great thing, and boy, selfishly, we'd love for, at least half of our client base to have donor advised funds, because
we're going for 100%.
We're going for 100%.
I knew you were, but let's get to 50 first. Yeah. But it's a very tax efficient way, but then it's like a pocketbook that's sitting there for them to plan and make their charitable donations. And so I think that can be a great thing as well.
Yeah.
Well, now I have to ask though, so what advice would you give to someone who wants to be more charitable, wants to be involved in that part of themselves, right?
Sure.
But they don't know where to start.
Sure. It can be very overwhelming. We live in a day and age where there are, because of social media and just media in general, feels like there's a need every corner that you turn around. And like Blair and I were talking about, I think you have got to find what resonates with you personally, because if it does not resonate with you personally, it's not something that you are uniquely passionate about, it's going to die on the vine. And you're not going to find that fulfillment and that satisfaction from it. So I always tell people, especially if they're on the younger end and they feel like I don't really have any money to give, or this is all a little bit over my head or too sophisticated, take really small steps. So maybe the first step is to ask yourself, why am I thinking about giving? What's motivating me? Is it because I was the recipient of some generosity at some point in my life and I want to pay it forward?
Which could be a great reason.
Which could be a fantastic reason. Could it be, I've got children now and I want to model for them what it looks like to be a responsible citizen? Is it my faith? Is it that this is the way my family brought me up? I mean, there's infinite almost reasons, but I think that can be the first step, is once you identify what your motivation is, that's going to kind of guide your next steps. And then I would just say, do a little bit of homework, start volunteering, really kind of do some self-reflection. What is it that Blair likes to say this, and I love this, that either breaks your heart or fills your heart? So what is it that keeps you up at night, either from sadness because it's breaking your heart, or just is so inspiring to you? And make sure it's your own. Make sure it's something that, not just because your best friend says, come with me to this event. Well, if it doesn't resonate with you, like I said, it's not going to be something that's sustainable and meaningful. So I think the smaller the steps you can take, the better. First, identify what is motivating you to give and help that be your guiding principle. And then just kind of get out there, start volunteering, asking your friends what they're involved with, and really do some self-reflection of what is it that I care about. And then make a plan, find somebody to help you make a plan, whether it's at SignatureFD or on your own. But think about, this year, my goal is to volunteer X amount of hours. I don't really have any money to give right now, but that's what I want to do. Or I'm going to bring 5 people along to get them involved with this organization. I mean, set realistic goals for yourself so that when you attain them and you reach them, you have that sense of achievement and you feel like you're making progress in that plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, Elizabeth. And then I'd also say, if you're willing to invest your time, then that's a good start.
Sure.
But I also think that as you get a little bit older, some of your views and some of your thoughts along legacy and things like that, they change or they grow, whatever the right word is. And so that's important as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things as far as kind of once you've started doing a plan, I think from my experience, people who plan their giving also give more. Mm-hmm. And again, they give more of their wealth. And again, I think from a financial standpoint, most people are able to give financially more than they can imagine. And again, if we can kind of give them freedom there just by planning for it. But again, I completely agree. It is more than just giving of the money. But again, kind of where our money is, that's kind of where our heart tends to go. So, volunteering time is great. But once you kind of start, kind of opening up the checkbook, or you're transferring some of your financial wealth, then your heart really starts going there as well. So I think it's not an either or, it is an and. And so my encouragement is always to kind of make them go together.
And I'll just add that if all of this feels a little bit kind of vague or intangible, I mean, science shows, and Time Magazine has written an article about it in the last few years, that people who give, people who are generous in whatever way, are happier, period. They may, on a balance sheet, have technically less money because they're giving it away, but they have more fulfilling and happier lives.
Yeah, and that's important in the end.
And that's important.
Yeah, and I would say probably just as we're wrapping up here, I think that goes back to our whole net worthwhile and why signature generosity. Signature generosity is not the only way that people can answer the question, what's your net worthwhile? But we feel like it's probably the one kind of initiative that we are, leading that really fits in with everybody. And so we believe it's the way that people are going to make a difference with their wealth. And so we're excited about the opportunities ahead. We're just getting started, and we kind of say, we're excited about not only what we can do with our clients, but again, how we can kind of lead and help other advisors. That's really kind of my vision, is how do we help other advisors? We can't touch everybody.
Sure.
But how can we be generous with what we are learning, and how can we share that with other advisors? I mean, I talked to an advisor out in Portland, Oregon. I doubt that we're ever going to go to Portland, Oregon, but if I can help an advisor be thinking and be a thought leader in that, I think that's being a great steward of what we're learning. Not that we are the experts, but hey, we want to partner with other advisors that we can learn from as well.
For sure. Great work. And you've set me up to ask a really important question, because I've got to believe when people listen to this, they're going to want to be in touch. So talk about how they can be in touch with you.
You can look it on our website. I think our website's got a lot of great information about this net worthwhile message, and that's just www.SignatureFD.com. There's some contact information. That's really the best place to go, just to our website and learn more about and start reading about the stories. There are different podcasts. And so we've put a lot of information for people to understand the culture and really who we are.
Great stuff. From Blair Cunningham and Elizabeth Burdette, they're both with SignatureFD. It's been a pleasure having you.
Great. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, folks, this show is brought to you by Frazier Deeter, and just a reminder that Frazier Deeter is a multi-award-winning. Every time I wake up, I see more awards, Roger. So I just have to say that because it's true. An award-winning international CPA and advisory firm, because a London office just got opened.
Which was very exciting.
That is exciting.
One day we'll have a SignatureFD team out there in London as well.
I like that. And we need to get somebody from London on the show.
There you go.
We can make that happen. But more on that later. But again, some great deep technical expertise across the firm and across the pond, and even deeper dedication to their clients. Frazier Deeter's CPAs and advisors believe in investing in relationships to make a difference. If you want more information, go to FrazierDeeter.com. Roger, this has been fun.
Well, thank you very much, John. We're very proud of SignatureFD and everything that they've accomplished in 20 years. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, great.
Thank you guys for being our guests.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Congratulations on your success, and we look forward to getting the good word out. So for my co-host Roger Lusby with Frazier Deeter, I'm John Ray. Join us next time for another edition of Frazier Deeter's Business Beat.